All right. Hey, folks, welcome to A High Note. We are here today with my guests, songwriters Dennis Hysom and Christine Walker. They're amazing collaborators in a variety of different musical genres. I'm going to slide over here so that my little kind of bubble is to the left. Um, they create children's music together, and he's a composer and she's a lyricist and an author, and you have a variety of other cool things. We're going to get into some in-depth conversation, get to know their story, but before we go, I want to say a special thanks to Piebox and Slack for allowing us to use their tools to communicate, collaborate, and educate and have a good time in this nonprofit space of music. Some people will hopefully find their way to a financial excitement, but this is all about learning and education. If you're interested in whoops, I went the wrong way. If you're interested in our community of the Composers Exchange, feel free to stop by the composersexchange.com. There's a form there, fill it out, and I'll get back to you if you're interested in the kinds of things that we talk about here, or some of the other types of harmony classes and different things that we're working on there to help people advance their careers and learn more about other people and their journey in the music world. So stop by if you're interested in that. Without any further meandering on my part, welcome, guys.
Hey,
Dennis and Christine. You guys, we met at Taxi,
yeah,
and you gave Christine, you gave me some great advice. I wrote a book last year. You gave me some great advice as an author of kind of how to get this all put together, because it's a new thing. Never thought I would be an author, but it's really awesome. And you've had a lot of experience with that and done some really interesting things. And I want you to tell that part of the story when at some point in here. And Dennis, you are a composer, songwriter. You put together music, I assume, for briefs and sync world, and you probably do other things. We're going to dig into that as well. But before we get there, what I'd like to do is kind of get your origin stories, where you guys, first of all, how you each kind of started, and what inspired you about music and or lyric writing and songwriting and that sort of thing, and then how you guys met and the magical love story, and you created this incredible world of other stuff around kids and so forth. So, why don't we start with you, Christine, and then we'll shift over to you, Dennis, if that, you guys okay with that?
sure. Yeah.
All right.
Well, musically, my grandmother was a piano teacher, and my sister and I began playing piano when very small, like three. We used to do duets, recitals together. So I grew up playing the piano and always loved to sing. Did some singing in school, in choirs and things. Not a great singer, but I love to sing and I love songs. So I would say that's my musical background. I'm a visual artist and a writer. But when Dennis and I got together, then I began writing songs with him as a lyricist.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So what kind of stuff did you do when you were doing, say, other people's music versus kind of shifting into that world of your own, where you're creating your own kinds of musical ideas and
You
so
know,
on?
just playing music that had been written, whether it was classical or something else on the piano, and just singing songs to the radio or to my records. Just, you
You
know,
didn't go out in spandex and sing in a rock band.
yeah,
You did it. I mean, you did a more traditional kind of, that's what I'm asking is some people do
yeah.
different things with it
No, yeah, I did some choral groups and choirs and things, but no, I was never a performer in that way.
in the kind of the pop world and that
Um,
sort of thing. Awesome. How about you, Dennis?
Well, both of us grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, and
Woo, I'm from the Midwest. I love it.
yeah, and I had mononucleosis in junior high, and my mom went out and bought me a. I had to be home for 4 or 5 days. She bought me a Sears and Roebuck guitar, and so I spent that time learning guitar. And I discovered real quickly that if I could play guitar, I could get girls interested in me. So so hayrack rides, things like that, I could play, and that was incentive to keep playing. And I started writing songs, and I started playing them for my mother. And I'm sure I look back in amusement because I'd come upstairs and I'd say, "Hey, listen to this song, great song I wrote." And I played it for her, and she goes, "Oh, that's great, great." First of all, she would say that, and then I'd go back downstairs and write another one. 5 minutes later, I'd go back up, and after the third or fourth time, she was, she'd go, "Oh yeah, that's good. Stay down there and work on it for a while." But growing up there, my heroes were I became real quickly songwriters like Jimmy Webb, Burt Bacharach. I started listening to that those beautiful chord changes. Bacharach using all those major sevenths and major ninths and the key changes and everything. And I just sought out singer-songwriters like Paul Simon, and those are the people I just listened to all the time. And I would sit down and I made a decision early on that I would listen to a song. This is before I really, could read tab, or there are chord charts out there online. It wasn't even an online. And I decided I would listen to the song and stay with it, not leave until I learned it, until I figured the chords out, the progressions. And I think I trained my ear that way. It was very tedious.
That's a great skill. Very fantastic idea to do that.
Yeah. And so, and then I started playing clubs. I mean, actually, when I moved to Kansas City from Wichita, I started playing, Rusty Scuppers and all those, steak and ale places. You hear the music in the background. And I played solo. I played in duos, played in trios, and I actually met Christine. Christine and I met in Kansas City. So, yeah.
What brought you together to Kansas? I mean, what brought you to Kansas City, Christine? How did you?
I'd grown up there.
Oh, you did? Okay, awesome.
And then I lived in San Francisco for a year after college, and I moved back there.
Wow.
And then I met Dennis there, and then he and I came out to San Francisco together in 1977.
Okay.
But we actually met in Kansas City. And he's right about the attraction. I mean, I would go with my friend who knew him. That's how I met him initially, through my friend who I'd been in my sorority in college. And, he'd be a guy with a guitar up there playing and singing. It's quite appealing.
I think back when I first started kind of writing songs. I know I annoyed the hell out of my friends and family because I would just make stuff up and say it's a song. But that attraction thing, I started in the 80s. It was rainbows and unicorns, man. So that was like, sing about rainbows and unicorns and all, that they were like, oh.
Yeah.
Also, he had
I didn't have a guitar though. I had played it on the piano.
He had long, curly, brownish red hair and a long beard.
Or you didn't have a mullet? That was kind of the thing.
No, I have a mullet now. I have a mullet.
It's kind of a hippie.
No, I know what you mean about the unicorns and stuff. I mean, early on there, all the lyrics were all dreamy and, and not very specific. And I mean, lyric writing, that's a whole nother topic. That's so difficult to get to really nail a concrete image and tell a good story. And none of those early songs were even close, but they were fun to write.
Yeah. But again, you can to be strong lyrically, you have all those story things, but then you also have to be relevant to the time. You look back to an old Irish drinking song, man. It's relative to the time. They're hanging out in the bar and they're talking about the moment and the feeling of whatever they're going through in their culture at the time. And it's fascinating to me how you think back into the 60s. All right. So a lot of the songs, they were, it was a revolutionary time. You're thinking about, the love revolution and that whole kind of, peace and love kind of a thing, anti-war or whatever. That was a big part of our culture at that time. And the pop songs were talking, they talked about what was happening. You look back to the jazz of the 20s and 30s, it's the same kind of thing. They're talking about that. Now, what I get frustrated with, and maybe you guys have a thought of this, because you're doing a variety of, you work on kids music, and then I don't know the other styles that you do. I'm gonna listen to some of your other tracks on your website. I did listen to a few things a while ago, but it's been a while. But so the pop music today, it's very sexual. It's very explicit in the language, very derogatory sometimes. And that's not all music. I'm not going to say all music, but how did we get there? How do you think we got there as a society? Do people just get bored with talking about love and peace and happiness and like, okay, I'm asking you guys, what do you think about that as songwriters writing to relevant topics and kind of connecting with wherever our culture is? I mean, you're probably not doing, rap music or the hip hop, the pop stuff, but there's still an element of that in our culture as it
Yeah.
relates to some of the stuff that we're writing these days.
I think some of it is, unfortunately, a lot of it is go where the money is. And, it's, if something is selling and it's very sexual and explicit and selling well, other people are going to kind of copy that. But I mean, that's the reason I've always appreciated really true artistry in songwriting is, somebody will really stay true to their heart and
Yeah,
sing.
you mentioned Paul Simon. He was brilliant at that.
Yeah,
And there's many more, but
yeah, yeah,
And I think things go in waves too. In addition to the children's music, we have written a lot of country songs, and we had a top 30 country hit at one point, 2004, I think. But I know that we are working with a mom and two daughters. It was very wholesome, good-hearted, family-oriented, and sort of more like, say, the Judds would be. You could compare it to that sound, beautiful family harmonies, and those kinds of themes. And then the same year that the song came out was a song,
Gretchen Wilson, also Big and Rich came out.
Redneck Woman.
Let's see, was it Ride a Cowboy?
And it
Ride a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. Sorry,
right. Whereas country had been kind of a little bit more home and family friendly, it all became a little bit more sexualized. It was just kind of a contrast. So I think that the things go somewhat in waves too. So you have the political type of songs and all of the baby boomers coming of age and free love and all of that, which affected a lot of the songs. I have a personal theory. I don't know if it's right. I don't know what to base it on, but that the popularity and the ease of internet and YouTube in particular has enabled a lot of people and also home recording to be recording artists in their bedroom and to find an audience by being a recording artist from their bedroom, sort of the Billie Eilish, genre era. And a lot of what the new modern singer-songwriters that you hear on, say, Coffee House or whatever you listen to. And so when you're in your bedroom, you may be more inclined to sing about something a little more intimate or a little bit more mundane, kind of the dailiness of something. A lot of the songs that I'm hearing are pretty, minute details about your life, which is really different than, say, singing a song about going across country, singing for peace or something. It's just so, but I do think that technology has influenced the kind of song and the ability for almost anyone to become a recording artist by putting things on YouTube and finding that following. And so when you have songs that are hard hitting and rocky or rappy or heavy metal, whatever, on the other hand, you have this soft voice, kind of a sweet, soft voice, maybe just singing about something very simple in her life or his life. That's a contrast. And so, an audience will find that interesting.
So for example, one of the examples that I use in conversations about this is like, I think that lyrically, and you guys tell me your perspective on that, lyrically, people are just more blunt in your face because they maybe lack the creativity to be able to. It's like if you think of like a Aretha Franklin, there's probably better examples than this. Riding down the freeway in my pink Cadillac. There's all kinds of innuendos in there, right?
Yeah.
But it's if you're just listening to the you're not going to go there. You don't have to go there, but it's kind of like the double meanings. And when I hear songs and not necessarily if they're being sexual in any way, if I hear songs that have those double meanings in them, that's like magic, that's really kind of a cool thing. Do you guys find those kinds of, we're talking about with the Composer Exchange, and I appreciate your help, Christine, and hopefully Dennis, you'll get involved too, in starting a songwriting workshop, and where we, get together a couple times a month and work through various song techniques and so forth. So in writing lyrics, do you use various techniques like that, or thought processes when you're trying to craft the perfect lyric? Is having those kind of double meanings in some of the language that you would use that would give people a little bit of imagination?
Well, ideally, you'd want to get there, it's that's a hard thing to do, I think. I mean, I think you're right. The Beatles did that very well too. If you look back on some of the Beatles songs, you can say, well, gosh, that could almost be sexual, but at the time it was so innocent, it felt so innocent. And I think, I mean, it's a lot harder. You hit on this, Chris, where it's just harder to write something that is not necessarily explicit, but tells a good story and has a number of meanings to it. It's just it's a hard thing to do. It's a very good craft to develop. And ideally, we would love to do that. I don't think that can necessarily be done consciously, though. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that.
Stumble on it, a hook or something that goes, oh, well, hey, that's.
Yeah, and that could be interpreted differently. Yeah.
So I think consciously, you choose your words. I mean, you might happen upon something, not thinking about the meaning, but generally, once you're crafting the song, you're pretty aware of it.
Yeah.
Well, as a couple, sometimes you have to choose your words carefully, right?
Yeah. Well, she's a really good lyricist, and I am not a good lyricist. I mean, music really is what I focus on, and I my lyrics are all over the place. They're like, imaginative.
Well, I think you're on the point where you're telling the story, and that's what's really important.
Yeah.
So, do you guys, when you're working on these things? So you said you had a top 30 country, you said, or
number 31, yeah.
31.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man.
Hit the top 40.
That's cool. Did you? Well, I have the business side of me that's going to ask you, do you make any money off of it? And then the other part, that's awesm. That's fantastic.
You made a lot of money.
That's good. Retired.
Well, that whole thing, Chris, back then, that whole thing was, it's changed. I mean, as you know, the models changed so much, but back then, the incremental difference between, say, having a number 32 song and a number 31 was significant. And then the closer you got to having a top 10, that was amazing. And then when you hit 5 or, in the charts.
So it's as far as, so when you at that kind of rotation, it's related to your royalties.
Yes. Yeah.
And do you still? So how many years ago was this?
20.
I think it was
14.
It hit top 30 in 2004.
4, yeah.
2004.
Years ago.
So I imagine, when it was hot, you were making more royalties. And then do you still get royalties from that today?
We actually still do get a little bit, but what happens with BMI, so we're registered with BMI. When the song is played on a jukebox, when the song is played on some radio station, when the song is played in karaoke.
Yep.
In Germany.
Yeah.
You get
Europe's a different story. We could talk about that, but
no, I'm just saying that we see on a royalty what these things are. They might be cents or pennies or something, and they tend to add up. Now it's not very much money.
No, it's not much anymore.
But I'm just saying that the tracking is still there.
That's
for
good.
Songs, and our children's music are the first songs we wrote in 85, and they came out in 86, and then we had sort of up through like 94 for quite a few years of children's songs that are still out there. And so we still
the other thing we had as a revenue was I did a whole series of CDs for the Nature Company Discovery Channel.
Okay.
Where they would send me to wild areas like Costa Rica, rainforests, and I went to Alaska, Glacier Bay, Alaska, and recorded ambient sounds and came back and then composed music. And I had a budget.
Oh, that's a dream project, man. You
got
to live my dream.
Oh man,
it's fun.
And so we got pretty good royalties through that because the Nature Company really promoted them.
a good sale. You had CD sales.
Sales, yeah.
And those are not songs, they're instrumental, but with
Yeah.
nature sounds woven into them.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Really.
Yeah, I did one of my first actual CD albums. I did the same thing. It was solo piano with all kinds of nature sounds. And one of the things that I did that was fun, and you know, people aren't going to notice that you have a tree frog from the rainforest with a seagull, you know, and a
Yeah.
wolf or a bear from, you know, I mean, you can play with those things. I mean,
Yeah.
you were doing targeted things. They wanted, you know,
Yeah.
very specific, but I
Yeah.
got to play with the other because it was just an art project, you know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So
There's a very specific ambiances from specific forests.
exactly.
Yeah.
Totally.
And specific times of day. I mean, you know, if I had took a frog recording or something and played it, you know, in the afternoon or something, people would get busted. People would call up and say that doesn't happen. You know? You know?
We had an experience with it. I'll just mention the frog thing because I didn't go on. I think I went on 2 of your trips, and he went on quite a few trips for these albums. And one of them was in Puerto Rico, and we were talking to this guide who lived in the forest and took care of the forest, but he let us stay in, gave us access to the gate after closing. And we walked up, and then at dusk, the coqui frogs began to chirp.
Do you know the sound of the frog? Coqui.
Yeah.
Coqui?
Coqui.
Yeah.
Coqui frog.
Interesting.
It really high pitched, sort of a bird-like sound. Like coqui.
Okay.
Coqui.
Anyway,
Well, I'm sure I've heard it in
Yeah.
they're only in Puerto Rico, so
They're only in Puerto Rico?
mostly in this one LUK rainforest.
Well, this particular species of
Okay.
coqui frog is endemic
Yeah.
to Puerto Rico, and you don't really find them elsewhere. So
So we were up there, we were
Quite a few
waiting for coqui, then a few more until we were just absolutely, it was cacophony. I mean, it was just, we were absolutely surrounded by the sound of these coqui frogs in the dark. And it was, you know, just a really unforgettable, wonderful, and that's like the music of the world, you know, everybody doesn't get to
Oh,
hear
absolutely.
it. But it was
I remember one of the times I was in Mexico, I just waking up and going, my God, the birds were just amazing.
Mhm.
There's so many sounds, and you know, people don't they don't really listen as much to they take it for granted so much, you know.
yeah.
There was a guy that used to arrange for a big band that I knew in the Twin Cities, and he got a job working at the Smithsonian. And what he would do is he would transcribe bird sounds and put them into his music. It was really pretty cool what he was doing.
Oh, is that David Rothenberg or?
No, I can't remember the guy's name.
Okay.
He used to do arrangements for big bands.
Yeah. Okay.
Really, but what an amazing talent. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I could hear that good that I could transcribe it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That's good. But that's really neat that you got to do that. So what are the kinds of projects now, Christine, you write books. Tell me about a couple of your books and then how you got into writing, you know, come back to the songwriting and the lyrical content for what you might be working on, you know, more currently.
Yeah, I mean, I actually began songwriting on our children's song series, which is called Woolly Cat, before I wrote my book. But my book is a book that was published by Warner Books called A Painter's Garden, Cultivating the Creative Life. And it is a book of, it has my paintings in it, and then my writing essays or stories about creativity, creative process, explored through a garden metaphor. And so that came out in the late 90s, and I did the book tour and all of that. And then I'd always liked to write. My grandfather was twice poet laureate of Kansas, so I had the kind of the poetry in my background. I had written poems, and then I started writing short stories, and one story got longer and became a novel. And I thought, I'm writing a novel. I don't really know what I'm doing. I love to read novels, but I'd never written one. So I did go back and get my MFA in writing and literature. I had a master's in painting, which I still do. I'm a painter, but then just I continued writing novels, and then the songwriting also was just concurrent with that. So children's songs, country songs, and now we're working together on the songs that we're doing for sync, submitting for sync. And then, you know, here and there I write. I've just been learning to play the uke, so I've been kind of
Oh,
writing my own
fun.
songs for sing-along songs we go to something called Redwood Ramble every summer,
Oh,
which
okay.
is a musical camp out in the redwoods. So I've written some songs for that, and that I can
Neat,
perform
fun.
on stage. And
Oh, that's awesome. So Dennis, are you a singer? You sing? as well?
Yes. Yeah.
So do you guys sing songs together then, like live in?
not very
Oh,
good.
at Redwood
Yeah,
Ramble we
just-
do, but
Oh,
probably
okay.
not,
I'm
we
not,
don't perform
I'm not
together.
in his band, you know.
Yeah, I'm in two different groups, a duet or duo and a 9-piece group. We play around the Bay Area here.
So what styles your duo is going to be different than your 9-piece group? So what kind of styles are you guys?
The duo, I work with a great composer named Robin Eschner, and we call ourselves Chimney Full of Birds. And
Speaking of birds, the birds are singing to me right over
are they
here.
really?
I wasn't paying attention to them before, but now they're really kind of like going, "Nah."
Yeah.
Beautiful, but distracting. So,
And
so
see, in your neck of the woods, what would that be? What kind of birds are they?
oh gosh,
Uh,
my mom bought me a bird book because I was especially curious about that. But there are some different kinds of sparrows probably right now. That's what
yeah, yeah, cool.
I can't
So
really tell with the other sounds going on, but
yeah,
so this composer you're working with, are you guys doing an original music with that and playing
yeah,
around
they're all
places?
original songs, and they're really distinctly different from anything I would ever submit for sync. You know what I mean?
Of
It's like,
course,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Art, sync, art, they're kind
yeah,
of
yeah, and
There's a lot of detail in them.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
nuance kind of thing. So
yeah.
is it a lot of finger picking, like extensive music stuff with some lyrics on it, or is it
Mhm.
really telling a story with some more strumming kind of a thing going on? I mean, is it more complex on which side?
A lot. It's very I mean, I think they're pretty complex. We try to work out interesting guitar parts. Uh, we have a decent harmony together, and the songs are very unusual. We wrote a song called, let's see, I think of
That could be beautiful.
yeah. There's this we wrote a song called "America Be Beautiful." Be
Yeah.
beautiful, and it's Robin had written some lyrics, but it was all about immigration and really the mistreatment, well, the disdain for the fact that we're all immigrants, and this xenophobia that we seem to have, from the previous administration about uh, people who come into our country and that sort of thing. But
it's not overtly political.
no, it's not
just really a beautiful.
It's a story about an
song.
immigrant who comes to America and plays the accordion and grows flowers and things like that. So
Neat.
Robin writes very interesting lyrics and stories.
That sounds really, really, really fun. And then the 9-piece group, what are you doing with that?
Those are more cover. We do a lot of original stuff that we'll take songs that Robin and I wrote and we'll expand them because we have an upright bass, we have an accordion, we have.
Oh, he's in that group as well?
Yeah, she is Robin.
Or she, okay,
Robin Eschner, yeah. And
okay.
so, but we have a really good dobro player and steel guitar, 2 or 3 guitars, banjo, and I suppose it kind of leans towards Americana, kind of bluegrassy Americana stuff. But certainly we have infusions of other sorts of styles.
They're called the Boone Hikers.
The Boone Hiker Band.
I love the name. That's kind of.
They're playing Sunday at Hot Monk, which is
Come on
right.
out.
Our local
Yeah, be right out. So so that is that a place that's close to where you guys are?
Yeah,
This
it's
they play in Berkeley. Kind of part of the group lives in Berkeley, and part of the group lives here in Sonoma County where we live. So
okay, Sonoma County. So this is what I wanted to put into context. So you guys live in Sonoma County. How did you get there? And tell me, before we started here, you were telling me a little bit about the community that you live in, and and how does that community perhaps affect, your mood, your vibe, your creative spirit for how you guys work?
You want to take that?
well, I'll just say we moved to San Francisco initially in the late 70s. We lived there for 18 years, and we, as a painter, I had a big painting studio, and Dennis was doing all kinds of music projects, and I had a graphic design office and all of that. We also had our child was, when he was about 6, we decided to move up here, what we call the country, partly just for a little bit more of a, country life and local schools and that sort of thing. So we live near the town of Sebastopol, which is a fairly small town, but Sonoma County's wine country. When we first came here, is a lot of orchards around us. They're now mostly all vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, for being a pretty rural, it's also fairly sophisticated. A lot of writers, artists, musicians, and we happen to have a group of friends we have a lot of musician group of friends, these people that Dennis plays with. And yeah, we work at home. We have our studios here on the property, and we have an acre and old buildings.
Regular jam sessions and art collaborations.
Yep. And I think the great thing, as you know, I'm sure, in being a networker, and meeting people, you meet a couple people around here, and if we're first moved up here, and someone would say, "Oh, you should meet so and so. He plays, upright bass," and so things just kind of begin to coalesce. It's great.
Yeah, that's. I mean, when I was, back in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I mean, it was always, it was get together for jam sessions, and it was fun. And I lived in a really arts community. Since I came out east, and I retired for a while, but I'm coming back into music. It's like there really has out where I am right now. There isn't really a community. So I connect with people more online and collaborate that way, as opposed to, live jam sessions and that sort of thing. I go to some jam sessions every once in a while, but this community isn't quite as active with that, or at least where I've been. So I envy you guys. That's awesome. That's wonderful when you can get inspired by other artists kind of in real person, as opposed to, virtually.
Yeah.
It's hard to do music on Zoom. We've learned that.
Yeah. Well, so many people have tried to get rid of that delay issue. And there's a lot of technology and a lot of people that were really trying to work on that. There was a band jam or something, I forget what, during COVID, a couple of them, and I tried them, and I'm like, it's not quite there. We were close, but you couldn't get a groove. You could be playing really good music, somebody else is playing really good music, but there was no groove. It's just it was flat.
So it just proves the whole notion that, it's not just about sound. It's about the actual vibrations that come off your body and the movement of musicians and the
Exactly. Well, it's like I was mostly a drummer, and when I'm playing drums, I usually put on sunglasses because my eyes are closed and I don't miss a cue. Usually, I'll open them once in a while and hear that, see when the guitar comes down or whatever. But it's like, because I'm tuned into a different place. It's just like, in an intimate relationship, you become kind of spiritually connected to a person. When you're in a musical, space, you're intimately connected with the other musicians that are there in a really unique way. If you want to sound good, otherwise, it's flat,
Yeah.
So it's really all about that connection and really, listening and connecting those vibrations together.
Yeah. Now you're a drummer, and I see a piano. You play piano as well, and guitar.
Yeah, I'd have to say I'm a retired drummer. I still play, and I do all the jam sessions at Taxi, and I have a lot of fun with that. And I had a good career with it. I got to play with some amazing musicians and really had a lot of fun. But it's a lot physically to keep up with. So is piano. But I played piano. I noodle on the bass. I can't play guitar to save my life. I think I can play Lyman and Coconut, and that's about it.
There you go, one chord.
I can make music on any instrument, but to play it legitimately, nah. But piano, I've studied a little bit, and I'm a wannabe jazz artist. I play a variety of stuff like that, and you have to have a depth of a depth in vocabulary on the piano or a guitar or whatever. If you're going to get into composition, you have to understand the theory and this is really, it's a good tool to work in my world of DAW, The DAW is magic. It really allows me to do a lot of things because I mean, I'm working more on like trailer music and orchestral kinds of things and but you know, there's a whole skill and craft, and I kind of came from that, but you know, where you guys are recording acoustically, that's a whole different, you know, it's a beautiful world when those live when that live experience really comes alive. Like I had this rule: if you're gonna do something that's all your DAW, add one live instrument, and it changes the entire dimension of the whole piece of whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Could be the kazoo or whatever it is, you know. One live instrument makes all the difference from what you're playing in with a DAW because it's audio, right?
Yep.
You know that
It
it
fills it out really.
fills it out in a different way that people, it's hard to explain until you hear it. So, so now, you guys, what is the creative process that you guys use when you're, if you're going to write, working on some new music now on a collaboration project?
Mhm.
And what's kind of style or genre? And then what is the creative process that you guys go through in how you collaborate?
Well, I'll just say that we went to our first taxi convention in the fall in November,
Mhm.
and Dennis had been a member
Well,
of
this year,
this
Yeah.
year,
that was
23.
your first time, but you had been a member, but this is your first time being there.
Yeah, he'd been a member for a couple of years, but never gone to a
Yeah.
convention. And he was going to go to. We talked about it. He said, "Well, you know, it's an hour plane flight. Let's go." I said, "I'll go with you." I figured I would leave the hotel and go into the LA and look at art galleries or something and just, you know, hang out. And actually, I went to all the sessions. I loved it. I got very into it.
And she won a guitar.
And I won the guitar.
You did win the guitar. That's like the dream of everybody there. You
Sung
got
by
it.
Michael Lloyd. Yeah,
And you don't play.
He wrote, "No one puts
She doesn't play.
He wrote, "No one puts Christine in a corner" on my guitar. Michael Lloyd, because you know he wrote music for Dirty Dancing. So
Mhm.
anyway, I loved it, and I realized that, you know, we've written so many songs together. We've had a lot of success with what we've written, that I was really interested in working with him on addressing these briefs. So when we worked, we have our little wheelhouse that we're defining, which I would say the modern singer-songwriter songs, and then for Dennis, some of the musical cues. You can explain it more, maybe acoustic and, you know, not too orchestral, but so he's been doing those. He does the music. Sometimes I'll give him a title or maybe sort of something conceptual to say, why don't you try to write something towards this emotion, because those cues are generally based on singular emotion. So it might be the title that would give you the clue for the emotion. But then in terms of the songs, mostly how we work is I write the lyrics, and then I might have some musical idea, a chord or two, and he may or may not even accept. I mean, he may discard it, or he goes off in his own way. So he'll write the music, and then he does all of the audio production on it. And on one of the things that we submitted, I actually sang, and he did a lot of auto tuning to my voice. It was really nice. Because again, I have a decent voice, but it's not, you know, it's not a rock and roll voice, pop voice. And then Dennis has been singing for the most part the submissions for the male voice, and we probably will get to a point where we hire other people, but we haven't done that at this point. We're just still kind of working out, you know, that wheelhouse thing.
You know, what I find I mean, I consider myself kind of a retired songwriter because I don't do it that much anymore. I have a couple things, but when I only wrote, you know, lyrical songs, I would sit down and I would like play the piano, and then I would get a little chord progression, then I'd kind of sing what I would come up with a melody and just find words, and then I go, oh, there's an idea, and then I would evolve into, you know, something that's a story. This is a hook. This makes sense. This is kind of thing. Do you do that? I mean, when you're starting that, do you do that same kind of thing? You'll find a tonal base, and then you'll just kind of see what comes to mind around some words as far as the lyric goes, and then take that to Dennis as like, okay, here's my bass line, and then he would take it and evolve it. Or do you have another process? I'm
Yeah.
fascinated, and I think that would add value to people thinking about the songwriting process.
For me, lyric, the lyric will come from sometimes a really strong hook. Could be the actual hook in the chorus, or it could be the first line. And and some kind of emotional, I'll say hook, but it's like the emotion of a story that can evolve. Now with sync songs don't have as much story and as much development as a lot of the other kind of songs that I'm used to writing. So I'm just kind of getting used to what makes something more syncable versus a song. So sometimes I'll write something and it ends up being, this would be nothing that you could send into sync. But if I'm trying to write to the brief, then I will listen to the songs and try to, if there's an emotion stated, I'll try to write around that, toward that. Without working toward a brief, then I would say it's more like an inspiration of, how I look at it is like some things need to be a long story, like a novel. Some things need to be a short story. Some things need to be a poem. Some things need to be a painting. I did one time, an orchard up the road from us was being cut down, and I spent 6 weeks going up every single day drawing the trees in every state of their demise, and to the point I was drawing them in their own charcoal that was made from the
First of all, I should clarify, they were cutting apple trees down,
trees, yeah.
and then they were planting grapes, which is makes more money per acre. So,
but my point of this is that I spent all those days doing all the drawings until it was just 10 acres is a big pile of dirt with a burning ash pile. And I exhibited those drawings, but then I wrote one poem because it just needed that, it's just like there was something I couldn't quite put in the paint in the drawings. And I feel the same way with songs. There's something where I just feel like it really needs to be a song. And, if you're working towards, when we worked with the country singers, for instance, we had stories to tell that were around the mother and daughter, or the family, or the young love, and those kinds of things. And in something like that, me being no longer a teenager, the girls at the time were teenagers, I would have to dig down into my own teenagehood, and write a song about like what might have been, remembering that I was on a date with this boy, and we were driving around in this car at night, and it was very romantic, but I was 17. But I can do that. I can dig into my memories and write from that place, and then you don't bring in every single thing else about your life. You just try to stay with that moment. And that's what a good song is. It's something about a moment or a specific emotion. It can have evolution. It can have a story. You can go from birth through middle age to death in one song. You could do that, but then you just don't want to put everything in it. It has to have a through line that's very specific.
Are you able to, are you able to write outside of where you are and what where your memories are? So for example, I found it difficult. What I found is when I was sad and, just emotionally distressed for whatever trauma that might have been happening, I could write a lot of really good songs because I was able to tune into that emotional space. Now, as a crafted, more experienced writer, I can write about that even though I'm happy. So because I had the experience or whatever, but do you find that if you have to put yourself in a mindset of being somebody else, so let's say you're a 90-year-old black man, okay, and you have to try to get inside of that space of where the life that they've lived and where they are. As a trained songwriter, you can get into that space with the right research and the right understanding or whatever. Do you find that you're comfortable being able to get into a different track than what you're personally able to or personally experienced? Or I don't know if I was clear.
I know what you're talking about. Like I would say for writing fiction, I have to do that all the time, get into the heads of my characters and try to understand how they would express themselves, how they would talk about something. So
I think that's like being an actress. You're really going into a space and you're trying to make that character come alive.
you know, in your particular example, a 90-year-old Black man, I don't know that I would be comfortable. I mean, I could maybe try to make something up and it would be based on having read something and, you know, that someone else's life, which is how we live our lives. I mean, it's great to have empathy and sympathy and to be able to step into someone else's shoes. It's great to be able to do that. I don't know that I would write a song from that point of view unless someone asked me and gave me.
Well, that's what I mean. If you had a sync
it.
thing that you're trying to do it towards,
Yeah,
I mean,
then I might try.
I mean, nobody can tell you what it's like to be a parent until you're a parent. You
Right.
just it can't be explained.
Yeah.
You transform your mental thinking
Right.
and who you are when that happens to you. So you know, but
There's a I mean, I like songs that have authenticity to them. Those are songs I like to listen to, and those are songs that if I wrote a song and wanted to play it on my uke, let's say, or sing it myself, I sure like songs that have some authenticity. It doesn't mean it has to be exactly my life at this moment in my life, but it, you know, there's a whole range of human emotions I can access because I've lived in the world a long time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of well, like when we were working on the children's stuff, our songs, we would take fairy tales and nursery rhymes and use those as a starting point and evolve the stories to be something that would be more contemporary and usually had a fairly strong positive message to them. So, I mean, again, I'm relying on my background as a person in the world with a certain kind of moral integrity to be able to sing a song. And there's things that you don't put into us that I wouldn't put into a song that maybe someone else might, but I'm just not, it's not my voice. I'm not comfortable with that moral code or whatever. So I think that's pretty true on down the board, even if I mean, I just might choose not to do an assignment that it didn't appeal to me, or I felt like I couldn't really come up with something that felt authentic, that I would just be parodying or I would be copying or something, and I wouldn't really understand the experience. But
what so and I guess I kind of want to get your perspective on songwriting, Dennis. How do you, if you were going to write a song, say without Christine, what's your process that you might do different than when you're collaborating with somebody else?
Yeah, really interesting question. I was just thinking about, I have tremendous respect for anybody who can, as you say, step out of their own skin and write something as a craft. And I have a really hard time doing that. I've got stacks and stacks of notebooks downstairs my office with lyrical ideas. And you know, I don't think of myself as a lyricist, but I can really but everything is very personal. So it's, you know, you're really touching on the, and I hope I'm answering your question. You're touching on the difference between addressing a brief and what you mentioned before, doing your own art. And I find answering briefs, addressing briefs, and creating music that fits the brief exactly to be very difficult. I find it to be very difficult.
But that's part of the challenge, is that you're given parameters, you know,
Yeah.
you have to work it. You've given this box, and that's like, you know, that Wild 13 chord isn't going to work in there.
And it could come down to just
and that. It can't have this big, long philosophical thing. It needs to just be 3 words that just work.
Yeah. And I'm this gets off into the whole DAW question and everything for me, the production thing, because historically I've always worked with great arrangers, great producers, people like that. And now with the studio and the doing, you know, taxi and briefs and everything, I'm wearing those hats. You know, I'm wearing the arranger and the producer hat and everything, and the engineer hat. And so there's learning curves all over the place.
Oh,
you know?
God, yes.
And I'm convinced the medium is the message. Is most of the message right now. I'm convinced that actually, you know, Christine mentioned earlier that we've been singing a lot of these songs, but you know, I'm 74 and I don't have a kid's voice. I don't have that young hip voice anymore, and I can try to sound young, but I'm totally convinced that we might write a great song together, decent song that has a shot at getting forward and placed in sync.
But you need to find the right singer for that.
And if I send my voice and don't get the production right, it's what they'll hear is that, and they won't hear the song.
Well,
So
that brings me to that other point. It's like when you were singing songs when you're up to your mom. It's like one of the things I learned, and it took me, I don't know why, maybe I'm slow, but I would play these songs for my friends or family, and like, man, I hear the choir and the funky bass player and the guitar player and the horn
yeah,
section, and I hear all that stuff when I'm playing and doing this, and I get done singing my song. I was like, "What'd you think?" And they're kind of like,
They
"Eh,
don't hear it.
yeah,
they don't hear the same thing."
no, no, it's true.
So,
That's
but
a big,
the beauty with the DAW is like I can put that horn section in, I can put in that funky bass player, and I could you have that ability so that then it's like now you hear it.
we've since we've for the last 6 months been with Taxi again. We've done 10 submissions, and I know that people submit all the time, but we've kind of been trying to be selective. Out of that, we've had three forwards,
Forward.
and of those, we've had two not placements,
Signed to a
but
catalog.
signed to a catalog, and
Well,
but those are mostly instrumental. So I'm kind of moving back towards instrumental and less focused on the songs until I can find a bunch of young voices that will. I know there's 8 groups that you can send them off to, like
well, there's a variety of online collaboration platforms and stuff like that. So I'm working on my first collaboration with a singer in 20 years, because it's a song for like a Olympics, right? So
oh
I
great.
sort out all the history of all the Olympic songs, and Celine Dion did it, Gloria Estefan did one, I mean so it's like it's got to have that, it'll have the half note half tone modulation at the end.
Sure,
There's
sure.
going to be the cliche things like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like, okay, you go write the top line. I created this great arrangement. Hopefully this is all going to work. Then you come back, but it's a different process. It takes a lot longer to go back and forth. And,
Mhm.
which brings me to a point. Do you ever write a song and say, okay, here's the lyric, or here's the melody, and here's the arrangement. Christine, can you turn this into words? Can you give me the story
Sometimes.
with that?
Yeah, sometimes I have an idea, or I'll have a lyric idea or something, and I'll especially, I mean, there's been different eras in our life where we've worked differently. Like with the country music, we'd sit down together, and sometimes with the artist, and we come up with this idea that somebody has. It's like any song in Nashville. There's these stories about people that they sit down, and one songwriter says to the other, "What do you have?" And people start throwing ideas around, and then a song comes out of that. And that's kind of our experience with the country stuff.
We've written sitting around a table with another songwriter or two. We've written I do lyrics, hand it off to him. He writes music, hands it off to me.
Yeah.
Or we go back and forth for a while. Things change.
So
yeah,
we're,
a lot of different ways.
those with the children's stuff and with the country stuff and the nature music, those were all we've seemed to be able to find a rhythm of creative collaboration with those. And I think with the taxi briefs, we're still trying to find our creative collaboration and how best that might work.
Kind of your voice, this is, well, you can't do everything. So people, you know, I think it was Steve started that new library, Real Note Music. Okay. Nice guy. And he's a really talented, cue writer himself and composer. But there's like he gave this list of briefs of the different things, and I'm like, I kind of think that would be fun to do the funky soul one, but I never got to it. But I'm like, the ones that I know that I can do because I'm focusing on doing those right now. That's what I had, tried to focus on with that. So
Absolutely.
you can't do everything. You have to do, even though you might want to, because this would be fun to do. This is my niche that I'm working in, and where I'm going to be able to deliver the most value to
Yep.
whatever library.
And I have to say that one of the things that's interesting about doing the taxi brief, say for the modern singer-songwriter, that category, is that I am now listening to, modern singer-songwriters. I mean, I sort of stopped at like Bonnie Raitt, maybe a little Kenny Loggins. You know, it's like those are
Well,
Mitchell
that's
on
the
that.
thing. These things push you to
Yeah.
doing something different.
So
Yeah.
I like that. I like the fact that I'm listening now, and I like, for instance, Ingrid Michaelson. I've discovered now she's not that new, but she's in that younger generation. I love her. Her songs are they're lovely. They're upbeat, and she plays the uke. And but I have found I still have to be inspired. So sometimes on a brief, even we might say modern singer-songwriter, and they'll give us 3 examples. And if I'm not inspired by those songs and those voices, I just don't really want to do it. And I have to feel like, that's still kind of in the wheelhouse, not only in the kind of song I'm capable of writing and perhaps singing to do the recording, but in terms of the, it kind of gets back to, we talked about the content. If something's all like about misery and drugs and everything, it's just like, I just don't really want to write a song. I'm not inspired to write something
Well,
that's about misery.
that's
Really.
that's interesting. So one of our composer friends in the Composer Exchange, she's really, really talented at writing these dark, moody, emotional pieces that are perfect for, I don't want to say horror movies, but dark themed movies, right? So, we're working together. She's doing some other pretty cool things now, but anyways, so I asked this question to her because she was like, if she gets known for that, like the Fonz is always the Fonz. Henry Winkler had a hell of a time doing anything once he got, pigeonholed, right? So if you get pigeonholed with that, is that the kind of visual images that you want to be scoring music to? And she's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives another dimension on where you want to go with your art, and finding your own voice and being able to, to be able to have that come out in the work that you're doing, as well as, and then I say this about, say someone like John Williams. I use him as an example. So John Williams sounds like John Williams.
Yeah.
He wrote for Jaws. He wrote for Star Wars. He wrote for, you know what I'm saying? He made unique soundtracks for each of the movies that he did, but he still sounds like John Williams. That's one of the things that I think as artists we try to find, is a way to be ourselves, or in your case, you each have your own unique voice of that duo, plus the specific target within that box that you're trying to create. And I think that's getting harder to do.
Yeah.
Sound unique. So, but it sounds like you guys have nailed that before. So you're gonna nail it again. I have every
Thank
bit.
you.
You're gonna get there. You're gonna make it up the hill. So we're getting kind of late on time.
Okay.
I want to go into kind of the rapid fire and throw out some things, and you guys share your quick thoughts on that. So who's your favorite artist? I'm going to start with Christine. Favorite artist
There's a singer
you like to listen to?
Oh, I listen to, I love Eva Cassidy, who had a very short career, but I love her voice. And
This is rapid fire, Chris.
a rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Joni Mitchell, the Beatles.
Hey, thank you. I was waiting for that. I was hoping. Yep. What a treat. You, Paul Simon. All right. Who inspired you the most in your musical career?
My grandmother.
Jimmy Webb, Burt Bacharach.
Jimmy
Webb and Burt Bacharach.
Good choices. If you could change, what skill that you don't have right now that you would like to have, are you working towards musically or creatively? I'll start with you, Dennis. Go ahead.
Okay. Production quality, recording quality, arranging, and mixing.
Playing the baritone uke, which I've only
All right.
for a year.
You're going to do a concert for us at some point. I want to hear that. That'll be awesome.
I'll bring it to Taxi. How about that?
Yeah, well, that'd be cool. That's why we hang out at night, and after hours. Where's that festival that you guys go to?
Redwood Ramble. It's in
Navarro.
Camp Navarro near Philo, California, near
Awesome.
Cloverdale.
So, hey, folks, you guys get out there and go there and check them out. And I guess it's a cool vibe. It's kind of a
It's
cool
a very
thing.
cool vibe. It's a very it's by invitation, and it's really hard to get tickets, but
It's a great, really, yeah.
Cool. And how many years have you guys been going to that?
about our 6 years.
6 years,
So
yeah.
You guys going to Taxi again?
Yeah.
plan to.
Right. Your favorite creative tool, the tool that you use?
I use Logic Pro for tracking, and I use Pro Tools for editing.
And what's your favorite library? Your favorite-
Library. Oh, you know, I haven't used a lot of string section. All the native instrument stuff and the Spectrasonic stuff is great. On the Sphere, Trillion, yeah.
How about you? It's probably not going to be a DAW, but what's your what's your favorite tool that you use? Could be a pencil. It could be whatever. You know, I'm not trying to.
I think my mind is like
There you go.
Hey,
That'll
look,
work. What do you think is gonna aside from the sync stuff that you guys are doing, what do you think musically will be a fun next adventure beyond the sync things that you guys are doing?
Wow.
Plans to do another album with kids music or other stuff? What are you thinking about?
Right. We have a lullaby album that's we kind of set aside, but we might get back to that.
I think lullabies, and I have a lot of personal songs that I would like to turn into tangible, distributable products, songs in the best way.
Awesome. So now what we try to do here is share information and insights. And I love the fact that you both have different perspectives, yet you're bound in your creative world. What advice would you give, Christine, to an aspiring songwriter in wanting to improve their craft and the depth of their lyrical and visualization talents?
I would say that if you've been struggling to learn guitar, get a baritone uke instead. It's much easier to learn to play. Once you can play a lot of, basic chords and you can learn them pretty quickly, it can really expand your musical ability in terms of the songwriting. And then lyrically, I would just say I love songs. A song to me is just, like young at heart. I've been learning that in my uke. And, a song's like, how old is that song? It's written like 1920 or something. It's just a great song, and it will always be a great song. Maybe it's got some little different metaphors than we use today, but it doesn't really matter. And I want to write songs like that. And I would just encourage people to write a song that it just is its own thing you carry with you in your heart, and you want to sing it to your friends. And to me, that's just the hallmark of a great song. You don't need all the bells and whistles, it can be as complicated or as simple, but it's got a really strong core meaning, and it's fun to sing, and it makes people feel good.
Yeah, like Somewhere Over a Rainbow, Dreaming of a White Christmas. These classic songs, they're brilliant and genius in their simplicity and how they connect with our worlds. Great advice. Absolutely great advice. How about you, Dennis?
I would say dig down deep into your own personal experience, write what you love. But when I say dig down deep, I mean get in tune with your body. And when you play something, you sing something, if it resonates in your heart, somehow resonates. And you'll know that the subtler you get, the more you'll know this excites me. Stick with that excitement, because that is going to lead you to some sort of creative opportunity. That's the best advice I could tell someone, to stay with it, stay with their own experience, and don't ever give up on it.
Yeah, so it's that resilience and having faith in it. The term that I use is, once in a while I'll get started in a composition. I don't know if you guys have had this, where it's like, this is like putting lipstick on a pig, man. This one is a stinker. But I'm like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to tell it's right. but by doing that, I finish my stuff. Yeah. I don't have stuff lingering. I just it's kind of like thing. So that's awesome. Great advice, you guys. And I'm really excited to hear that you're doing so many great things, that you've had these successes, and I have no doubt that you're going to be very successful in the path that you've chosen. You're doing some wonderful things. I'm going to put the links to your websites in the description below.
Okay.
And is there any other special thing that they can go and check out besides the three? You sent me the Woolly Cat, which is your children's series, ChristineWalker.net, which is your art and your books. And if I recall, you kind of have workshops on how to be creative and spawn
Yeah, that website has links to everything, so.
Beautiful. And then Dennis Hysom. Did I say that right? Hysom or Hysom?
Hysom. That's
Hysom.
Hysom. Anything though.
Hysom, yeah. But don't make me late for dinner. Anyways, you've got some beautiful stuff up on your website. So please, folks, go check it out. They have a wonderful world that they've created and contributed in this world and creative space. So thank you guys for joining me today.
Well, Chris, thank you
Thanks,
very
Chris.
much for having us.
Any other closing thoughts?
No, bless your heart.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Remember, be sharp. Always end on a high note. And thank you guys for listening. And if you're interested in the Composer Exchange, click on the link and find me, and I'll hook you up. And we're gonna have some groovy times over there, learning and growing and getting smarter and better. And Christine, you'll probably find her over on the songwriting team if you come in. And Dennis, I'm gonna rope you in because I want to plug you into one of our other working groups up there. I think you're gonna have some fun. So thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.